allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any change to the agenda?
I'll move approval.
Second.
I'll second it. Oh, you
I got it.
got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. We have minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Public comment, anybody? Okay, move on. Dan Wormager, is that, did I,
We're Mager, yep.
Wormager?
Pretty close.
All right. Hi.
Dan?
So, just discuss the amendments, and I sent out a copy of the amended plan to everybody in that email a while ago. How do you want me to do it?
Just highlights?
Okay. Well, like last year, we passed a resolution so we could have the 5-year extension on the local water plan. Now, we're in the process of amending it. Almost done here, and then when we get all the comments, if there's any from you guys, we'll send it back into the state, they'll approve it, and then as far as I know, I'll have you guys officially adopt it. It'll be good for 5 years. And as you know, with that River One Watershed One plan, that comprehensive watershed management plans, this red part basically, that Pine Creek watershed area, was the only part of the county that was not adopted as part of that plan. And so that is now covered by our local water plan, which is set to expire at the end of this year. Board of Soil and Water Resources from the state said we should get that 5-year extension so that when the One Watershed, One Plan type plan, the Whitewater River up here in Winona County goes through, this will get absorbed into there. So when that goes through, we'll have 2 One Watershed, One Plan type plans, if that makes sense.
And to be on the same rotations and of 5 years equally, and does that matter at all?
I think it's every 10 years, those One Watershed, One Plan plans
Okay.
get kind of reviewed. I believe it's 10 years. So, we didn't receive much for comments. One comment from Bowser, who I've been working with, the Board of Soil and Water Resources. They pretty much just stated, restated all the changes that I made to it, said, good job, we'll get through this. The main changes that they mention in this are to the executive summary, which the main change to that was we took out all the other watersheds in Houston County because they don't apply to this one watershed. I added some information from some recent studies on this Pine Creek from the Pollution Control Agency and a surface water assessment grant that we got from them. Our goals and objectives changed a little bit, but we just focused them on this one watershed and things like working with Crooked Creek Watershed District, for example, didn't apply. Stuff like that didn't apply, we threw out. The other comment we got was from the Minnesota Department of Ag, and this was just an email I got from Rob Sipp from the Department of Ag, and it seemed like it was kind of a automated email that he must send to every county that is going through this process. So, half the stuff didn't even apply to Houston County. Like, he talked about irrigation, crop irrigation, drainage ditch management. It doesn't really apply to us. He also talked about wind and water erosion, nitrogen issues, The Minnesota Agriculture Water Quality Certification Program, all that stuff was already,
No red flags or anything we need to look at with that then?
yeah, all that stuff I already had covered, so. So those are the only comments we got. Like I said, the main changes was to the summary to the plan and the implementation schedule. You know, what are measurable goals and outcomes we want. Stuff that didn't apply to the Pine Creek watershed I threw out. And some stuff that was kind of special to it I added, or any new stuff that came up recently, like the buffer law, our new cover crop program through our office, you know, stuff like that I added, so.
So what's the next step for us, Dan? We just wait for this to get through the process and then it'll come back before the board?
I believe so, yeah.
So you don't need anything today necessarily from us?
No motions or nothing, so unless you have any comments, anything, any conservation goals that you feel our office should really focus on in this Pine Creek watershed.
And this is under Winona County area also, right? Are they dealing with the same watershed?
Okay, so that's that one watershed, one plan type plan.
Right.
So I got this little map that might be useful. This local plan that I'm amending will hopefully get absorbed into that
Okay,
huge watershed-based plan.
okay.
So there's all those kind of
And
sub-watersheds.
This is the Pine Creek thing that you're talking
Yeah,
about, which will be incorporated into the Red River and the
Whitewater.
Whitewater.
Yep, okay,
It'll
so.
go into the Whitewater probably, right?
Whitewater.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So this is the River One Watershed One Plan. This will be the Whitewater One Watershed One Plan. They're still in the process of getting it jump-started.
I live right in the middle of that little pink zone.
Mhm. So,
So when it's all done, that area by Pine Creek will be all flooded.
Flood zone.
Yeah.
It already does.
No
Yes,
insurance.
you're right, Jack.
Does anyone have any questions, Fred, you?
No, I think this was
No,
information
no,
only, right?
it's- He's been through it thoroughly with the committee that had it.
Okay.
They know a lot more about it than I do.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, anything else, Dan?
That's it.
This-
That's all there is.
Hopefully I made it clear enough. It's kind
Well-
of confusing, but.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I looked through it and I'd still be confused, but we feel you folks know what you're doing, so.
Yep. Know a lot more about it than us, and Fred's been following it pretty closely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So-
all, it's all reasonable, and it's all been done very, very well, thank you, Dan.
Yeah,
Thanks, Rich.
thanks for your time, and Mr. Wirmager.
Yep.
There you go.
All right.
Thanks, Dan.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Rick?
That's a good thing. Good lady.
There is, just the thing is with the 5 drop-off sites, in the past, what we have been doing is bidding out the recyclables that come in from the haulers, self-haulers, and every drop site has a container to collect that. Those recyclables are transported to La Crosse directly to a recycler over there, rather than down to Houston, where we do not have the manpower nor the equipment to do that. And we switched quite a few years ago back to hauling it to La Crosse. It was just basically cheaper for the county to do that. We could no longer afford to do it at Houston anymore for what it took us, and the markets would not bear it out. We were losing too much, so we ended up contracting the stuff to La Crosse. The contracts we've been letting is for every 3 years. The last contract was for 15, 16, and 17, so that contract ends now as of December 31st. And what we did was went out for bids. We got 4 bids to process those recyclables again, and that's what I think Shar's got them. I had everything sent to Shar to be opened up at the board meeting today.
Ready to go for it?
Now, what she's gonna read is there's two bids on there. One is for rigids and the other one is for fibered. What happens is with the fibered material, the way we have this set up is, and that's your paper and magazines, that we go by the high side yellow sheet out of Chicago. We get paid for that material. And then the rigids is what we pay to process because the markets and they pay that and keep that material. Well, they keep both of them, but what happens is when we get paid for the paper, it offsets the cost for the rigid material. So we,
Okay, I'm just, no, like in the Crescent drops, they buy aluminum cans.
yes,
Okay, so. do
that's
they-
not part of it.
Okay, what do you?
This
talk-
is for
what-
like the tin cans, the glass.
Refrigerator?
No, that's
No,
not,
that's
no.
not-
I'm talking recyclables, the same thing you'd put on the curb as far as rigid material.
Okay.
Plastics, tin
all-
cans.
All the stuff with a little triangle on it?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And we too sort here in the county for the rural drop sites. So,
So explain that one more time, Rick, the yellow sheet on that.
well, what we do is base the fibered material, it's worth some money.
Right.
So what we do is we self-haul it and basically we sell it to the
Whoever gets
successful
bid.
bidder.
Right.
They'll pay us per ton
Right.
for that month based on the high side yellow sheet, the sellable out of
Oh.
Chicago.
How, high side yellow sheet is just a
It's a market price.
market. Yep.
Yes. And then for the rigids, we pay them so much a ton to process that material, and they keep the material. So what we do is we apply the money that they pay us for the fibered to the processing of the rigids,
Right.
depending on market. There's times, like right now, the yellow sheet is high. And basically, we get paid extra. It pays our processing, plus they're paying us extra right now over that. There's been a lot of years where
The other way.
the market price is down, and we've got to pay because it doesn't cover our cost.
okay, this is thick, so I'm missing something. So, company ABC in La Crosse buys our paper based on a price out of Chicago. But they gotta make some money,
Yes, they're making money.
so that Chicago price is not,
They're probably selling it, they're separating the magazines and the paper out, and they're probably getting a little better market than what we get.
all right. Got it.
Ready
Okay.
to read the bids?
Yeah.
Okay, the first bid is from Harder, Green Circle Recycling. Mixed papers, $25. Rebate per ton, it says payout positive value of after $25 per ton processing fee. Commingled recyclables, $15, rebate per ton NA. The next bid is from Hilltopper. Mixed papers, $15, rebate per ton, 50% based off mixed paper pricing. Commingled recyclables, $15, rebate per ton, NA. Richard Sanitation, mixed papers, $30, rebate per ton, 40%. Commingled, $35, rebate per ton, nothing. And the last one is Waste Management. Mixed papers, $45 per ton. Rebate changes monthly based on the RISI Pulp and Paper Week in the first edition each month. High side price for the Midwest region. Commingled recyclables, $87 per ton. Rebate per ton, 80% of the blended value.
Okay. Translate that into something we can deal with.
Looks like,
It looks to
Well,
me
we
like
look at the
Hilltoppers.
major ton first, I imagine, Rick. You got 2 at 15 for the tonnage. And one's giving you an $8 rebate, and one's giving you a 50% rebate, is that correct? So that'd be 7.5?
You run that by me.
Okay, you're talking mixed papers, though. There's only one $15 bid
Okay, maybe.
on mixed
You gotta-
papers.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
You started with
Hilltop.
Harder's,
Harder
right?
was 25.
Correct.
25.
Right. next was it Hilltoppers?
Yeah.
Hilltoppers was
15.
And they
15.
were at 15 with the 50%?
50%.
Correct.
Okay.
And Richards was 30 and 40%, and Waste Management 45, and then that whole big lingo about the rebate changing monthly.
I guess it's confusing as to how, I mean, looking at just the numbers, Richards, I don't
What
know
was that?
how to interpret 30 per ton, 40% rebate of what?
Of the 15, like say if there was if it's, like Hilltoppers had $15 and 50% of that is what they'd apply to the,
How does that match up against Waste Management's 45?
that's what I'm a little confused at. I don't know what their lingo is sitting there. I mean, it was the bid was pretty specific on being high side yellow sheet, and I don't know what they're quoting there. They're quoting probably their markets, where they're selling to, I would assume.
Let's just, how about just going over the, say, the percentages? If they say a 50% rebate over was Waste Management an 80% rebate?
Correct. Well, that was on the other one, though.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just talking mixed papers.
Oh, okay.
And Harders was 25% and
Richards was
So should we
40%.
break it down first into just mixed paper?
Yeah, okay, so mixed papers, we've got Hilltopper low at 15, 50% rebate. Then we have Richards at $30, 40% rebate. Next would be Harder, $25, payout positive value after $25 per ton processing fee. Waste Management, $45 per ton, rebate changes monthly based on different things.
So, I mean, according to that,
According to that, Hilltoppers would be,
right, is way,
yeah.
I would think a higher rebate is a better deal, I'm assuming. I mean, your $10 a ton, the $10 a ton is cheaper, correct, if I understand this right? That's what we're paying. Or is it?
Well, the
or-
15 is what they bid.
Right,
Yeah.
15.
But
And
you
that's a
got-
better deal than 45. I'm not looking at it opposite, am I?
Correct.
well, you've got Harders though, they're giving you $25 a ton instead of the 15, which is more.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. That's what they're giving us. We're not paying. This is,
I'm just talking now mixed paper.
And-
okay.
Well, then Waste Management at 45 is considerably higher.
But they're, I don't know, but
But
they're
we don't
considerably
know.
higher, and the Ridges too at $87. I mean, that's, yeah, that's extremely high.
Which the 87 means what to us
That means we're paying $87 a ton for every,
for every,
yeah.
okay.
So what
just
you
want-
do is,
It all depends on, be a lot of factors involved with there, Rick. And
yeah, I'm going to, let me sit down with the figures, and I'd like to probably look at this and then,
Bring it back next week.
yeah,
break it down a little bit of,
Yeah.
you know, depends on how much rigid we have compared to,
well, I
Mixed
give
paper.
I give each hauler an 18-month window of what we did last year and the 6 months before that.
right?
So they had 18 months of hauling history right there that they could go on.
So basically, you gotta look at the mixed paper over the rigid and see,
Yeah,
you know, we're higher on one but lower on the other.
I mean, I appreciate you gentlemen being here tonight, but I don't know, I hope you understand, we gotta kind of look at this, we can't just,
I know Rick and his math, so I figured it'd take a little bit.
thank you.
Should we table this, Rick, and
I would appreciate it.
Where
Let
you
me
can
go through
look
the
at it.
numbers.
yeah,
and
let's,
that way I can come
Yeah.
back and
if you gotta get any information from the bidders, you could,
yeah.
together.
I'm not so sure and wasted just what he is. I need to talk to
Yeah.
him, to Gary.
So then we need a motion to table, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You have anything else for us, Rick?
No, that would be about it. The only thing I can maybe give you an update on the school there, that, the route I think that we're gonna go is I had 3 firms with asbestos background that could come in and give me, to take a look at everything, and the one I'm probably working with out of Rochester is going to turn around and separate, what we're gonna do is separate the material as much as we can. There's a lot of, like garbage, there's a lot of hazardous waste, some hazardous waste in there too yet, besides the asbestos that's sitting there. So we're gonna try separating out that as much as possible. There's a lot of, like garbage, there's a lot of that stuff can be separated out that we can haul directly and not have to pay hazmate or haz waste pricing. I narrowed it down. He did finally, what I wanted him to do is specifically give me a detailed analysis of what he's doing and how he's separating the stuff and preparing the stuff and what all needs to be done in order to that material to be sent to a demolition landfill for that will accept that. Right now, that looks like to be in Austin, Minnesota, where they'll take that. I did call across county. Because we have the contract that specifically states that we need to take it over there. Their desire at this time, because they're this close to winter and the amount of material that needs to go over there, they just assume if we did find another spot. I had them email me a email with that, giving us a one-time exemption from the contract so that we can do that, just because of the volume of material that is probably there. I'm also working with the contractor that it was originally awarded this, because there's going to be some change-ups here because of the way this stuff has all got to be handled, the amount of volume and the transportation going from one facility to the next, and sorting that all, because what I want to do is come back to the board with some hard numbers and to exactly how this thing is going to play out. And that's what I'm kind of working on right now. I don't have them shored up as of yet. I've been working with the contractor. I do have it shored up with the firm to do the testing and the lab analysis and everything right on site. So we can just kind of keep, once we start, I don't want to stopping it for any reasons, you know. So I want to make sure all my bases are covered on this as we're moving forward. But I will bring the final of what
Okay.
it's probably going to run us and what's involved.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Aaron.
Evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Hi,
evening, Aaron.
Several items for you tonight. I'd like to start with recommendations from the Planning Commission on conditional use permits and one rezone. Excuse me. The first recommendation is a conditional use permit for Doug Heinz to operate a feedlot with in excess of 300 animal units. He was operating at 299 animal units, and he's looking to increase to 444 animal units. These are all dairy cattle. His existing infrastructure is capable of accommodating this increase.
Okay.
The recommendation came with the condition that the permittee comply with all federal, state, local laws and regulations, and the permittee obtain all permits required under the Minnesota Animal Feedlot rules prior to commencing construction. I should say the construction piece of this is a small lean-to that doesn't increase capacity, that it's not it's a temporary daytime storage, not overnight storage. He has since obtained his feedlot permit, so now he's just looking for the CUP from the county for the increase. Any questions on that?
Anyone?
He's basically going up 150 cows, 40 cows or something like that.
40
Yeah, he's looking at, he's going from 180 mature cows to 240, and he's increasing his heifers slightly as well.
So you need separate
need-
motions on each one of these conditional use permits?
I believe so.
I'll make a
Yeah.
motion to approve Doug Heinz expand feedlot.
I'll second.
I would suggest we adopt the findings as recommended by the planning commission as
Okay.
well. Those were all in your packets. We could go through them
Yes,
if there's
yes.
a need, but.
Yeah.
Is that your motion?
Yes, and Fred seconded.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
Next, we have a conditional use permit for a home on less than 40 acres in an ag district. This was a house that was originally permitted on a 40-acre parcel and subsequently split off. We have some language within the ordinance that allows that to occur after 10 years passes. In this case, that amount of time did not pass, so they need a conditional use permit to bring it into compliance. We treat it the same way we treat a construction of a new house without that 10 years passing. And I should say this is for Leslie and Cindy Getzinger.
So they don't have to do a subdivision of one or anything like that? This is just because of the fact that it's less than 10 years?
Yeah, they've already split the property off.
Okay.
It's hitting all the other performance requirements that would be applied to a non-farm dwelling. So it is the only house in that quarter section.
Okay.
So that's not necessary, but they do need that CUP because they're a non-farm dwelling.
Okay.
They're looking to permit a accessory building, and we withhold permits from sites that are out of compliance.
Yeah.
So this
that makes
returns them
sense.
to compliance. The recommendation in this case only has one condition. It's that the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for Leslie and Cindy Getzinger
And
Second.
Again, I'll clarify that with the
Yep.
findings as.
with the findings, yes, excuse me.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, lastly, we have an application and a recommendation for Robert Klankowski. This is on a piece of land west of Spring Grove. The recommendation is twofold. First, it's a rezone to change from highway business to agricultural, and second, it is for a conditional use permit for a house on less than 40 acres in an ag district. Why don't we handle the rezone first? The site was previously ag. It was rezoned to highway business in the mid-90s for a plan for an auction-style business that never came to fruition. There is a building on it. It's used for storage and horse pasture. It's surrounded by other agricultural properties on all sides. There are some limited industry properties on the other side of State 44. That's the Sodco building and the Shooting Star Seeds buildings. The recommendation from the Planning Commission is to return it to agricultural protection. I don't believe there's any conditions on that. No, I'm sorry, they're the same condition. The permittee shall comply with all federal, state, local laws and regulations.
I'll move for approval as per planning commission recommendations.
I'll second it.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Lastly, this is the same parcel. This is the building that exists on the parcel, currently not classified as a dwelling, looking to have it classified as a dwelling, and that CUP is needed because of the acreage being under 40 acres in an ag district. Residences aren't permitted use in a highway business district, which was why the rezone was necessary, but this
Yeah.
kind of completes that circle. This is recommended by the Planning Commission, and with the familiar condition that the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, local laws and regulations.
Make move for approval as per planning commission recommendations.
Second.
I just have a question, I guess, as far as, had two tonight now that don't fall into the 40 acres. Is that, I mean, do we circumvent the 40 acre thing casually, or?
I wouldn't say it's casually. We did change the ordinance last year to put in that 10-year exemption, so that if
Oh,
a house
okay.
Right.
is built, say, a long time ago, and then 10 years passes and it's split off, that's, I guess, the lack of crystal balls and
Right.
stuff for citizens. But if it's 1 or 2 years, we do require them to come back through the
Okay.
permitting process like it was
Yeah.
being done for.
I'm not objecting, I'm simply trying to clarify.
It is a bit tricky, and that the alternative is probably not something that any one of us want to face, and it would be telling someone to remove a house or buy more land if we denied it.
Right.
But they do go through all the motions that you would if you did it from scratch.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, and then the next item I have are 2 environmental assessment worksheets. I would like to start with the underpass quarry. So we began this process last spring. The underpass quarry currently has a conditional use permit. It is in excess of the size that requires an environmental assessment worksheet to be prepared. And that is the reason for commencing the EAW here. It's in the mandatory category.
Right.
They're also looking to cover more acreage because they're going through this. That doesn't necessarily mean that the permit will be issued for more acreage. It just means that when they looked at the EAW, they're covering the most
Right.
acreage that they
Right.
potentially would utilize, I guess. I've prepared a negative declaration and a positive declaration. They're both in your packets, as are all the comments we received during the distribution, or I guess during the entire process. I'll touch on the process a bit. We publish in the, well, I guess we worked with the consultant to prepare the EAW, also working with the consultant that was hired by the proposer in this case. In the late summer, we determined that the EAW was complete. We published it at that point in time in the EQB Monitor, and we distributed it to a number of agencies on the
Right.
required distribution list. Then we went through a 30-day comment period where we received comments from those agencies, and we provided responses to each timely and substantive comment that was received during that time.
Right.
And that takes us to where we're at here, which is a decision on the need for an environmental impact statement, or a decision that the EAW is adequate. A negative declaration means that we do not believe an EIS is needed. A positive declaration would mean we're looking for further study on this. In your packets, you had the list of comments that were summarized and the
Yep. responses
to those. I could answer any questions you would have regarding those.
The comments seemed like they were all very positive as far as moving forward on it.
Yes, there are a few
There were-
comments. There were some concerns expressed. And
Exactly.
proposer and the county have worked to modify the proposal to adjust for the comments we received from
Right.
regulating agencies. There's also draft findings, and I'd like to actually touch on the findings for each of these as we go through in your packets, and a draft resolution. But if there are no questions on the comments or the responses, I think we could move to the
No,
the required findings.
Right.
So on page 7 of your draft approved findings and record of decision are the required findings.
Right.
And they're proposed as follows: that the environmental assessment worksheet, this finding of fact and record of decision document and related documentation for the project were prepared in compliance with the procedures set forth by Minnesota Rules 4410.1000 to 4410.1700 and the EQB board. Sam's had an opportunity to review this document, and we've also had our third-party consultant weigh in on the process that we undertook for this. On each of these, I guess I'll ask if there's any comments that the board would want to add to these findings, to substantiate these findings, perhaps.
I'm good.
Secondly, that the environmental assessment worksheet, this finding of fact and record of decision document and related documentation for the project have satisfactorily addressed all of the issues for which existing information could have been reasonably obtained. So here we're saying that we've looked at the things that we reasonably should be looking at.
Right.
Third, the project proposed does not meet any of the mandatory EIS thresholds contained in Minnesota Rules 4410.4400. The acreage for a mandatory EIS for a rock quarry is 80 acres. And then lastly, the project does not have the potential for significant environmental effects based upon the above findings and the evaluation of the following 4 criteria. The type, extent, and reversibility of environmental effects have been considered, and they do not contain the potential for significant environmental effects. And I'd ask for...
Aaron, would you read number 4 again, please?
The project does not have the potential for significant environmental effects based upon the above findings and the evaluation of the following 4 criteria per Minnesota rules.
Right.
Okay, I don't know where I must be on, because I'm reading the project has the potential.
Sure. Within your packets, you had draft positive and negative declarations.
Okay, I'm
We have
reading
2
them.
different ones,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, it sounds like the process followed like it should. I mean, I don't know any,
But you want to go
Think that's
through
controversial.
both, right?
Excuse me?
You're going to go through both findings, correct?
Right. We're just talking about the underpass at this point in time. And I guess I'm looking for some thoughts in terms of, each of specifically these things, why it does not have significant environmental effects. I guess I would offer that the reviewing regulatory agencies with expertise in groundwater, air, things of that nature have reviewed and have made recommendations that have been implemented or adopted.
Yeah.
Which I agree we should follow that recommendation right there.
Yeah, there were some recommendations in
Yeah.
terms of the timing of year, that trees would be cleared, efforts using best management practices to
Right.
abate sedimentation, runoff, and things of that nature. And we've gotten commitments from the proposer to do all those things.
What's your office record on this operation?
In terms of
How they've operated in the past?
we have had some issues with the connecting road between a independently permitted sand mine. we've worked through that, resolved that at this point in time. During my tenure, we also had some screening that was windblown. Again, on the independently permitted but same operator mine, they've spaded in some trees to replace the screening, so it's a cooperative, I guess.
Cooperative?
Yeah.
So does your office feel that we need to require environmental impact study? Or can we go with the recommendations of the, everything is in order after receiving all the comments, that we can, there's not a need for an environmental impact?
Yeah, based on the comments we received, I would not recommend the environmental impact statement in this
Okay,
case.
that's kind of what I
So
gathered
what do
from
you
reading through
need us
this.
to make a motion
To,
of resolution 1 or 2, or?
I do, but I'd like to go through
Oh, okay.
the few more findings here, just so we have
Yep.
a full record before
Right.
we make any
Okay.
motion.
Good.
Next, the cumulative potential of environmental effects has been considered, and the project does not contain the potential for significant environmental effects. Thoughts on why that is the case? I would offer that we have commitments from the proposer to abide by county reclamation standards. That will, in order for this project to come to fruition, we will be going through a CUP process where the county is able to require conditions to
right,
have this done in a way that will reduce those to a reasonable extent.
right.
We've been, I guess you could say, struggling with this reclamation issue. Is this one where they would be stepping up with some kind of a promissory bond, or?
We certainly could require that, and I would hope to be able to make a recommendation to the planning commission. And again, the county board would be the final say on that.
Well, this is, this is a lot of acreage. It's not like, somebody has a hole in their lawn and they,
Right. This particular site will require 2 permits, and that we cap our rock quarries at 39.9 acres. They cannot hit 40 acres. They can operate contiguously with multiple permits, but the county then needs to actively make that decision by granting them 2 separate permits. So we would have the ability to treat the existing mine and the new area differently. If we thought that was the correct way to go, we could treat the whole area the same, but there are significant acres that need to be reclaimed there.
okay.
Yeah, and if we did have some sort of performance assurance in place, that acts as an incentive, because it's already been opened up. We can't tell them to, don't open up this area. It's already been opened up, but we can incentivize the reclamation by requiring a area-based assurance.
Okay.
I'm just not ready to tell you what
Right.
form that should take right now.
No.
I apologize, it's taking some
No,
time.
that's fine.
And I realize these are lengthy and a bit overlapping, but I think they are necessary. The extent to which the environmental effects are subject to mitigation by ongoing public regulatory authority indicates that this proposed project does not have the potential for significant environmental effects. The mitigation of environmental impacts will be designed and implemented in coordination with regulatory agencies and will be subject to the plan approved in the permitting processes as outlined in question. And actually, your handouts say 7, but it should be 8. So here we're saying that when we go through our CUP process, we will require things to regulate the activity in a reasonable manner,
Right.
and also that state and federal permits may apply, and the proposer may be regulated by other authorities beyond the county. The extent to which environmental effects can be anticipated and controlled as a result of other environmental studies undertaken by public agencies and the project proposed has been considered, and it indicates that this project does not have the potential for significant environmental effects. And here again, I would lean on the commentary we received from DNR, PCA, and the EPA folks like that who were made aware of the project but chose not to provide comments. So I'd look for anything from the board in addition on any of those findings, because those are the findings that
No.
would. Okay. Lastly, pursuant to Minnesota rules, a copy of this findings and fact and record is being provided within 5 days to all persons on the EQB board list, to persons commenting, and to persons who've requested a copy. This finding of fact and record of decision will also be made available on the Houston County website. So after going through all that, a motion could be made for a declaration. In this case, those were the findings for the negative declaration.
I read through it pretty thoroughly the last couple of days since you sent, since I got home, I should say. And I would like to make a motion that the Houston County makes a negative declaration, does not require the development of an environmental impact statement for this project, based on the findings.
And I wonder if we can work into that the resolution that's prepared at the beginning of your packet.
And as stated.
Okay.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay. And we've worked through two of these simultaneously, so the process that I covered for the underpass applies equally to the Winnebago quarry. Advertisements and distribution were done on the same dates, and we're under the same timelines for both projects.
Right.
In this case, the proposer is Skyline Materials. Your packets contained, again, all the comments and responses that were received. We've had more comments on this project than did we on the other. Any questions on the comments or the responses? Again, we had multiple suggestions or recommendations from various commenting agencies. A few agencies expressly said that they did not believe an EIS was necessary. No agencies expressly said that they believed one was necessary. All of the recommendations provided by PCA and DNR were adopted by the county and the proposer. These are recommendations of best practices for groundwater protection or sedimentation or additional archaeological work that needed to be done to be sure we weren't working in a historically sensitive area. With that said, I have copies of a new set of findings and charts running for you too.
Okay.
And very minor changes from what you provided, but I'd still like to cover them.
So this is different than what you emailed?
Very, very different, or
Okay,
I'm sorry,
I'll need
very
you to
slightly
email
different.
that to me so I can.
Yep, I can do that.
Yes, you get a whole bunch from Fred.
That's okay.
This is Justin's.
So I just want to cover the things that have changed from the document that you were provided. On
Okay.
page 5, the comment from Caledonia Township stated underpass quarry, and it was supposed to say Winnebago quarry, so that change has been made.
Okay.
On page 7, in response number 7, deleting the words contained in the EAW, so it just reads, EAW figure A5 indicates that no expansion is proposed on the west side of County 5. Response 8, in the first sentence of response 8, we're adding the word address and deleting the word information contained in the, so that the sentence reads, mineral extraction is a conditional use permit in the Agricultural Protection District, and the permitting process will specifically address the proposal's compatibility with existing uses in the area. The next sentence, we're adding the word impacts, so that the sentence reads, the EAW provides information on the anticipated impacts related to visual impacts, air, noise, and transportation. And then continuing from there in the next sentence, we're adding the word the in mining and deleting the word comply, so that it reads, the EAW states that the proposed mining will operate in accordance with the applicable ordinance requirements.
Okay.
Lower on that page in response 12, we're adding the page number so that to the first sentence, so that it reads, hauling material across County 5 is addressed in the EAW on page 4.
Okay.
Turning to page 8, response 13. Sentence is added so that it reads, comment noted, see also section 3, responses to the Minnesota DNR comments. And comment 14, a sentence is also added so that it reads, comment noted, future land uses will be regulated by the zoning ordinance. Turning to page 10, response 5, add a sentence so that it reads, comment noted, see sections 4 and 5, US EPA and MnDOT comments, which do not recommend an EIS. Moving to page 11, response 1. Comment noted, see section 6, Hartwick, response number 1 regarding the scale of the mining expansion. Below, response number 2, comment noted, see section 3, responses to the Minnesota DNR comments. And further down, comment 5, comment noted, water resource regulators have not identified impacts from drilling chemicals as a concern. Flipping to page 13, response 13, add a sentence so that it reads, comment noted, water resource regulators have not identified the potential for aquifer impacts. And below, response 14, comment noted, setbacks will be enforced per the conditional use permit. And finally, on page 15, about halfway down, the page referencing the EAW was incorrect as 7 and changing it to page 8.
Aaron, in looking at the comments, there are a couple from individuals noting the size of the mine. One indicating that it's 55 acres, not 40. Another
Sure.
indicating that I've lost my spot here, but how would you
I know what you mean, is that they're indicating that the entire parcel should be considered the mine, not just the excavated area. So I have some language from Minnesota Rules 4410, 4300, which governs the EAW categories. And the way that we look at mine size is taken directly from this. The way that it reads is that an EAW must be prepared for projects that meet or exceed the threshold of any of the subparts 2 through 37. Subpart 12 is non-metallic mineral mining. And here it says, items A through C designate that the RGU for the types of projects be listed for the development of a facility for the extraction of mining or sand, or mining of sand, gravel, stone, or other non-metallic minerals other than peat, which will excavate 20 or more acres of forested or other naturally vegetated land in a sensitive shoreline area, or 40 acres of forested or naturally vegetated land in a non-sensitive shoreline area. So in this rule, they're not referencing parcels at all. What they're referencing is how many acres are actually proposed to be excavated. So that's the way that we approach it too, is that if the proposal is on a 100-acre parcel, but it's for a 5-acre site,
Right.
we will view it as a 5-acre site. During the CUP process, we'll require that 5 acres to be surveyed, marked on the ground, and no excavation can take place outside that. But we would include the mine as to be only the area identified as proposed to be excavated.
I guess the concern I'd have about that is follow-up. I mean, so you mark this, and then are we going to periodically go out there and look at it, or?
We should be periodically looking at those, yes. The ordinance used to have a specific interval, and we changed that to periodic so that we wouldn't find ourselves in a situation where we weren't complying with our own ordinance because of staff time. But we certainly intend to look at them as frequently as we can.
And can that be looked at mostly now with our GIS and everything? I mean, you look at it mostly from the pictures, can't you?
Right. The reason why the prior EAW on the underpass quarry began was because we identified based on aerial photography that they were in excess of the acres that would trigger that process.
Right.
For something that's, a very slight measurement, probably not.
Yeah,
But
probably not gonna catch the slight stuff, but if it's going decently over a line, you're just gonna throw a flag out.
sure, and that's also why we would like it to be staked on the ground with
Mhm.
permanent stakes, so that we can go there and say,
Right.
here's where it was
Right.
marked, and we
You
don't
got
have to
it.
have or be a surveyor to say,
Right.
where's the boundary of this.
Okay.
So if there's no questions on the comments received or the responses, I can see the excitement in your faces because we're going to go through those same findings again.
Okay,
For
that's
this.
okay.
Gotta do what we gotta do.
Yeah. All right. Based on the information contained in the EAW and the written comments received and the responses to those comments, the Houston County Board has reached the following conclusions. And if I'm stating one of these and we're not in concert with what you're thinking, please speak up and we'll have a different finding. The environmental assessment worksheet, this finding of fact and record of decision document and related documentation for the project were prepared in compliance with the procedures set forth by Minnesota Rules 4410.1000 to 4410.1700 and the Minnesota EQB. Again, this speaks to the process, the procedures we undertook. And again, we relied on my office, the county attorney, and our third-party consultant to ensure we were complying. Secondly, the EAW, this finding of fact and record of decision document and related documentation for the project have satisfactorily addressed all the issues for which existing information could have been reasonably obtained. And I'd like to get comments on a couple things here. There's been some late received comments that are not timely, I suppose, because there is a deadline on when comments are received, but we can choose to consider them and address them on concerns about the effect on nearby springs and the effect on property values adjacent to the proposed site. And expressing the need for additional study to determine whether, what will those effects be. I would offer that the effects on the springs, if there were one, the experts who regulate groundwater who have reviewed the EAW would have signaled to us an objection to the project or additional recommendations to ensure that there weren't effects on those. To the property value, we have not delved too deep into what the precise property value impacts would be. I don't know that you could really do that. There might be a limit to the research that can be done to obtain extremely precise information on how a specific location would be affected by a specific proposal. But I do look for thoughts or comments from the board as to whether we maybe do need to look further at this, or enough has been done.
Have you talked to the assessor? Have you talked to the assessor about that issue?
Someone raised the issue of a home in a rural setting having picturesque country views, and that this project could potentially destroy or harm,
Yeah.
negatively affect those
Yeah,
views.
understand.
I did ask the assessor how the view from a house in an ag district is affecting the market price, and I was told that, or actually, I'm sorry, it wasn't somebody in the assessor's office, I should say, not
Yeah,
the assessor
okay.
themselves. That there's that's uncommon, that if you had a house that was in a subdivision, so not in a rural setting, and it happened to have very favorable rural views, that may result in a slight uptick in the value. But in an ag district in a community like Houston County, all homes in an ag district are just assumed to have ag views, or all homes in the country are assumed to have country views.
Right.
So it wouldn't be a substantial effect in their estimation.
Okay, so it has been checked out with people that deal with that on a regular basis, and
I mean, we had a brief conversation about it, so
Yeah.
that's the extent of my checking it out.
but there's no big red flags there from the people that deal with that sort of thing, is what I'm saying, is what I'm hearing you say.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts?
I just wonder, yeah,
That's
I
a
guess
tough-
go on. It's a hard thing to assess. I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
because it comes to mind these huge power poles that are going up. You know, I don't know if every property owner that has one nearby can say, you know, now my property value. I don't know how you'd measure to what extent and how many dollars or so forth, but.
Sure. And we are yet to go through the CUP process. One of the required findings during that stage will be a finding that it's not negatively impacting permitted uses already established in the district. So we will return to that, and at that stage,
That'll be
conditions could be put in. They're
addressing
already- in the EAW, they've already stated that screening and things of that nature could be used, but I don't know that you can have an operation like that and reasonably expect to have no effects on a neighbor, in the same way that if you have a cornfield next to a residence, you can't expect to have no effects. But it would be addressed by the planning commission should we reach the CUP application stage.
Okay.
Third, the project proposed does not meet any of the mandatory EIS thresholds contained in Minnesota rules, and again, the mandatory acreage for a rock quarry is 80 acres. Fourth, the project does not have the potential for significant environmental effects based on the above findings and the evaluation of the following 4 criteria. First, the type, extent, and reversibility of environmental effects have been considered, and they do not contain the potential for significant environmental effects. So again, here I would offer that we are heavily relying on the regulating expert agencies that have been notified of the project and provided comments, and all of the recommendations that they have provided have been adopted.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on?
You want? One?
I guess I would also point out that the commitment to reclamation speaks to the reversibility of the environmental effects. They wouldn't be permanent in a sense. It would be reclaimed to some future use. Secondly, the cumulative potential of environmental effects has been considered, and the project does not contain the potential for significant environmental effects. We're going to go kind of further into the weeds here and talk about what cumulative potential effects are. What that means is defined in the rules are the effects on the environment that result from the incremental effects of a project in addition to other projects in the environmentally relevant area that might reasonably be expected to affect the same resources, including future projects actually planned or for which a basis of expectation has been laid. So we don't have a plan on the table for any other project in that area right now. We do have a site that operated as a quarry at some point in the past to the north of the proposed site. So that, what's required of us then is to determine whether we have the basis of expectation for future use on that site. It continues in analyzing the contributions of past projects to cumulative potential effects. It is significant, or it is sufficient to consider the current aggregate effects of past actions. So the quarry to the north, if we look back at historic photographs, we can identify it in 1968. And we look at a photograph now, we can also identify it. The current size of that operation is approximately 0.7, 0.8 acres. So it's not large in scale. Continuing, and I'm reading select portions of this. In determining if a basis of expectation has been laid for a project, an RGU must determine whether a project is reasonably likely to occur, and if so, whether sufficiently detailed information is available about the project to contribute to the understanding of the cumulative potential effects. So again, if we look at that site to the north, is it reasonably, do we have reasonably likely for that to continue to mine? We have, the zoning office has sent a request for information to that landowner asking about details of the operation in preparation for determining whether it is a legally non-conforming mine or whether it is an illegal mine. The letter that we sent had a deadline for response, and we have not received a response. And we haven't taken any action yet, but just based on that, it would lead me to believe that it is not reasonably likely that it will be a legal non-conforming mine. It is much more so reasonably likely that it will not be a legal non-conforming mine. That's also supported by the historic photographs that you could review of the site. It exists at maybe half an acre in 68 and remains as such until perhaps 2006, and it looks like it begins to grow again. And I'll remind the board that one of the criteria for a legal non-conforming mine is continuous operation. So if we had something that didn't operate from, say, 1970 to 2003, it would not be satisfying those requirements.
Okay.
If it was deemed to be a legal non-conforming mine, it would be allowed to continue operation at the intensity that it has operated in the past. And again, we're talking about 0.7 acres over 50 years, so not a site which is expanding rapidly. If the operator then began to operate consuming, say, 5-10 acres annually, that would not be a continuation of the existing use. That would be intensification of a new use, I guess I would say. And they would be required to permit that, and then we would look at this from the other, in a reverse way, saying perhaps we have a permitted site to the south of you. Now it's appropriate to determine that there is a reasonably likely cumulative potential effects.
Understood.
Any questions on? If I'm getting too far in the weeds, please stop me. But I think we need to get all these.
No,
into the record.
I'm fine. We had you down for 15 minutes, so.
Next, the extent to which the environmental effects are subject to litigation by ongoing, or to mitigation by ongoing public regulatory authority indicates that the proposed project does not have the potential for significant environmental effects. The mitigation of environmental impacts will be designed and implemented in coordination with the regulatory agencies and subject to the plan approved and permitting processes outlined in question 8 of the EAW. So again, after this process, should the negative declaration be made, we would move to a conditional use permit process, and we're also operating with state mining permits. Other thoughts on that? The extent to which environmental effects can be anticipated and controlled as a result of other environmental studies undertaken by public agencies and the project proposed has been considered, and it indicates that this project does not have the potential for significant environmental effects. Thoughts on that? I would offer that during the conditional use process, the planning commission and then later the county board has the ability to add conditions to the permit to mitigate environmental effects. Finally, pursuant to Minnesota rules, a copy of this finding of fact and record of decision is being provided within 5 days to all persons on the Minnesota EQB board list, the persons commenting, and to persons who requested a copy. This finding of fact and record of decision will also be made available on the county website. That covers the findings that I would propose to you. The first page of your packet has a draft resolution that you could choose to adopt as well.
I did read through all the 38 pages also. And I will make a motion that, to adopt the resolution that Houston County makes a negative declaration and does not require the development of an EIS statement for this project based on the findings of fact.
And I would, if I could add to it, in addition, adopt the resolution as prepared by staff.
As prepared by staff.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Do you want him to repeat everything?
Yeah. Go through that again, would you?
The question I have for the board on this is that everybody received these packets, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And would it be fair to say that you all had a chance to review the contents of that packet
Yes.
prior to the meeting today?
Yes.
And then you use that to base your opinion, Mr. Locker sort of walked you through things. Are you basing this opinion to your motion to adopt these findings based upon your independent review of those packets that you received prior to the hearing today?
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Accurate.
Be
I
accurate.
have.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Aaron,
Thanks, Aaron.
how many hours total would you guesstimate that you have involved in the Winnebago Quarry project up to this point?
I would be hesitant to venture a guess, but it's been a significant consumer of time.
Yeah,
Very much
thank
so.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your thoroughness. It's appreciated. Carol, still with us?
I am. And I'm going to take about 4 minutes or so.
That'd be great, yeah.
You're on the clock.
Clock started.
You received the September financial report, which is actually the end of the third quarter. I included the line by line from each of the departments if any of you were interested in going through them. And it does show, green if it's good for revenue and red if it's bad for expenditures. Yeah, that's how we did it. We didn't want it all red, so we kind of mixed up the colors. But actually, in comparison to 2016 third quarter, our spending is a little bit high, but our revenues are at the same percentage. And we'll be getting our tax revenue since the deadlines are coming up, so that will balance it out. And just if there were any questions, you just email me or...
Okay,
Or-
you see anything that,
No, I do know that we do have a couple of the big expenditures coming up that haven't been paid yet, and one is the truck for recycling. Is that actually in there, in your claims approval
I think so.
this week?
It will be coming.
Okay. Okay, so that's one of the bigger items that hadn't been paid yet that was included in the budget, which was part of our budget deficit, but hopefully our revenues will offset a portion of that. So we'll be okay.
No major red flags.
You know, there was like a note on your office supplies under the commissioner budget was at 217%.
Well, and you know, you have to look at what 217% means. It means you've spent $234 more than was budgeted. You know,
And what is
the
that?
percentage looks bad, but it's $234, and you've underspent in lodging and you've underspent in mileage. So if you look at the bottom line, your expenditures are only at 53%.
So what are the office supplies and printed forms kind of
Things
coming?
like business cards for new commissioners.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Probably.
And
Doesn't take much to get to $200.
Okay.
the nameplates
Yeah, the nameplates.
Oh, okay. Okay, just curious.
and things like that.
Yeah.
I know Shar asked me if I had my old one to try to save that, but I couldn't find it, so.
Okay.
Recycled, I think.
So if you have questions, you know, about any specific item, email me, or we'll not take up a lot of time here. But then you also must have received your
Yes.
audit.
Yep.
Jack was at the management exit, so he heard the details, and Fred stopped in, looking at the findings
Right.
that start on page
98.
98, and the corresponding responses we had, and some of the plans that we have to possibly eliminate some of those findings, so we don't. It would be nice not to have them.
It would, but I would have to say that based on what I heard is, it'd be nice if you did that, but we can understand why you're not. Kind
Right.
of attitude from the state, because we're small, we don't have people to back up everything as properly as
Just
perhaps,
even setting up some different procedures for reviewing things, or doing, you know, spot audits, and that would go a long way to eliminate some of that. I also they provided graphs of comparisons from 2009 to 2016, just to show different items, our net position, capital assets, revenues and expenditures, then revenues by classification, and expenditures. The same. Kind of shows up and down.
Now, the one thing that I noticed there that I was going to talk about tonight is the disaster plan. And I noticed on the agenda requests for next time, our emergency management director is going to be talking to us about that.
I guess I wasn't informed.
So I think I can just leave it till then, and we can talk about it then.
I think, Carol, you need to talk to our emergency manager before next week
Okay.
to
Yeah.
see what she's kind of coming up with. And
Yeah, I guess I don't know where it came from.
Yeah, it's a agenda request that we have.
that she wants to
Yeah.
talk about emergency management.
The
Okay,
week
emergency
ahead,
plans.
while we get a listing of the next week's
Okay.
questions and
Okay,
stuff, and that's
I'll
where
check
that
with her.
comes from.
That's your homework for next week.
that's my homework. Okay.
You can do it at work.
Talk to Olivia. She's nice to talk to.
Yeah, she is. So, without further, I think I went a minute over. I'm gonna go.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Carol.
John? Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. I will be really fast because we've got a pretty simple thing here. It's a revision to a policy that we've had in place for some time with regard to receiving fees for certain services based on participants or guardians' ability to pay such fees. There's been some changes legislatively and also a few changes coming to us from DHS as it relates to rules. And so I've incorporated those changes in the attached policy that I'm bringing to you. So this is something that's long been something that counties do, and certainly Houston County has done. And this is just a revision to bring our policy up to current statutory and rule compliance.
So you need a motion to approve that.
Correct.
Fees.
Fee policy, yes.
So moved.
Second. Beat you.
Is this going to be a big issue for your department?
I don't think so. It's some changes in the types of cases that we've pursued fees on, but it's something we've been talking about for some time. We saw it coming, and so we're prepared for that.
There's not much choice, right?
Right, and I don't know that the fees that we collect have a dramatic impact on our overall budget. I think what it is it's an attempt to have people take responsibility if they have the means to do so, and then use those dollars to offset the costs that the county has.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
That's all I had.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank
bet.
you. Tess?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Commissioners, I forwarded to you a copy of, got quite a stack here, let me get to it. The environmental specialist feedlot septic position description, along with Mike Verdorn of Gallagher and Associates classification banding determination. And this evening, we are looking for approval of the position description and the banding determination, as this is a brand new position. And secondly, the thing we're looking for is to approve initiating a competitive search for an environmental service feedlot septic specialist. This position would start, I understand, with the 2018 budget year. And with that, we'll stand for questions.
I don't know if I have a comment, I guess, that just last week sat down and talked with Aaron about this, so you want to explain the pay or the process for adding this?
Process?
Well,
Are you asking for a clarification on how it's going to be funded?
exactly.
Oh, I see, yes.
Thanks, Tess.
So we're proposing to use a combination of the feedlot grant and the buffer grant that we've received to pay for this position. Currently, we send $25,000 of our feedlot grant over to Soil and Water to conduct compliance inspections for us. I currently do the permitting in the feedlot program, and my office does the reporting of those inspections and other feedlot related things to the PCA. This position would house all of that function in one person, negating the need to send the money over there, so we would use that money, and we would also use the newly granted buffer grant money
Right.
to pay for it.
And I guess this stack of paper that Aaron brought to us earlier tonight is an indication that an additional person in that office might be very well used. Would that be a true statement? You'll find things?
Yeah, well used, I would call that an understatement. And,
Yeah.
it would be it would allow us to function at somewhat of a reasonable workload, is
Yeah.
my hope.
Well,
So does Soil and Water have the capacity to do our feedlot inspections and reports and
Well, the proposal's not to have them do
any of it
any
anymore?
of it.
Right, to take,
The
Bring it
delegation
back.
would have to go to the county. We have the authority to delegate it out,
Yeah,
but ultimately it's, the buck stops with the county.
okay.
yeah, we're the authority to, if there are any issues, to pursue them and make decisions, and so I think it's in the right, it'll bring it back to where it probably belongs, not probably does belong.
The other benefit would be the ability to have some cross-training and backup within the office, and that we have at the septic feedlot. They'll also be doing or be familiar with just the land use permitting process, and they're also going to be working with the ag inspector. So just a touch of everything, but the idea would be they'd be cross-trained so that, you know, I could do that work and they could do much of the work that I do. And so if folks are out of the office, the public can still be served.
And there'll be no levy impact, so that's a positive.
we went through this at budget, and it would be within the original budget.
Right.
So it's no impact on the budget. So,
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Was there a motion to approve? I guess.
I move that we approve.
Second.
Okay, any other? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen.
Human Services, John? Commissioners, we have if you look at the second page of the HR agenda, we actually have 3 different requests we're making tonight. One, I would like to start with the second bullet, and that is to accept the resignation of Melissa Foth, Child Protection Social Worker, effective the end of the business day, October 20th, 2017, and thank her for, she's been here for approximately 5 years of service in a very difficult field of work. And with that,
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Melissa Pop.
I'll second that,
Any questions, comments?
and we'd like to thank her for her service.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
we're excited for Melissa. She is going to Denver, Colorado, and so she's very excited about that.
Yeah, that's been a kind of a destination she's wanted to head that way. Missy's done an outstanding job for us in the time that she's been here, and we'll definitely miss her.
And
Glad she's leaving under those circumstances, going where she wants.
she's very excited, and we are for her, but we will miss her being here. That said, we would like to address bullet number 3, which is approve initiating a search, a competitive process for 3 social workers. One is for the forensic social worker. Second would be for the intake social worker. The third is for the child protection social worker, the position that Missy is vacating. Note, should one of these positions be filled by any internal candidate, we will look to the pool of applicants to hire for that newly vacated social work position. And if you have any questions about any one of these positions, Mr. Pugliese is here to respond to the specifics within the discipline.
I know we talked about this during the budgets too,
Correct.
John, and same thing as with Rick, this would have no budget impact, correct?
Correct. It's in the 18 budget, and it has
Right.
no levy
It
impact.
has no levy impact, right? Correct. I think it was fairly well discussed, I
Yes.
think, at budget reviews or budget.
And we're thinking that with this vacancy coming as close to the end of the year as it is, it's wise for us to have recruitment out of one pool as opposed to kind of duplicating that effort again in a very short time.
So would all three positions be starting in the new year?
No, we would
Yes, sir.
look to start the child protection position as soon as possible. That's a vacated position or a vacancy that we
Right.
can ill afford.
You'd advertise an interview for all
Right.
three, but hire sooner.
Yeah.
Would the other two, then, they would be January 1st starts, or?
That's kind of what we anticipate, yes.
Any other questions? Looking for one motion to approve all three, or do them?
So long as the record is clearly reflects that we will be searching for 3 social workers, 2 out of the 18 budget going forward,
Do you read
and
it
1
so we
now.
can so move it?
Approve initiating a competitive search for 3 social workers, forensic social worker, intake social worker, and child protection social worker.
Did you want to add?
You might want to add also the caveat as far as if there's internal applicants.
Yeah, that's a notation. Should
Yeah.
one of the positions be filled by an internal candidate, we will look to the pool of applicants to hire for that newly vacated social work position.
I guess the thought being that if
You
one
would
of
have
our
to come back in
staff,
front.
we may have a different position open because one of our internal
Right.
employees filled
Okay,
that.
but- Any other questions?
I'll second it.
Did we have a first?
I don't, did.
I'll,
Didn't you make the motion? Oh.
yeah, that sounds like a good motion.
So
Go
moved.
for it.
That's
Now you can do
complicated.
your second.
Did we have? Now I'm confused.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Who made the motion?
I've got
I think I did.
Oh, Scott did?
Scott did.
Okay, yeah, that's what Teresa, okay, so we got a second.
I second.
Yes,
All
you
right,
seconded.
all in
I
favor?
don't care.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
And the second page, I don't know if it's helpful, but the second page of the HR agenda is where I read the motions from, so if you ever
Right.
Yes,
kind of get
found it.
stuck on that. The last item that we are looking at is actually the first bullet under the Human Services agenda, and that's to approve the Children's Services Lead Social Worker on-call memorandum of understanding with the AFSCME Council 65. I forwarded this to the board for your consideration. I will remind the board what the purpose of this is for. We have, as you well know, you approved, and we have 2 lead social workers, one for the adult side of the house and the other for the children's side of the house. And the children's side of the house, the Children's Services lead worker, they have an on-call social worker within their discipline of children's child protection social workers. There are 5 in total. The lead is one of those 5 positions that is takes turns being on call and has to be responsible to be responsive within a reasonable period of time to law enforcement when they call.
Yeah, it's in response to recent legislation that counties need to have 24/7 response. So we rotate that responsibility on an on-call schedule where each of those 5 child protection social workers does a week at a time, and it rotates through those 5. The lead children's services worker is part of that rotation.
Because they carry an active caseload.
Correct.
The amount that is reflected here is $84.23 per payroll period. We annualize that for exempt employees. This employee is not an hourly wage person. However, if you notice in there, under item number 2, the on-call salary increase will be adjusted for increases or decreases in staff. So if we had more staff, there'd be less, the annualized payment would be less. If there would be increased staff, less staff, it is a late night, isn't it? If there would be less staff, as we will have temporarily with the recent vacancy, this will generate a higher annualized amount. We think this is more than fair. It's based on, I believe, $30 a day roughly, when we annualize it out into a stipend.
Correct.
And some of the other payments that on-call staff receive is not, this is a salaried position, would not apply to this position. And the union has signed the document and are in support of it, and we are looking to the board for support going forward.
So you need a motion to approve the child services lead on-call pay.
On-call memorandum of agreement with AFSCME
memorandum
between the
of
county
agreement, okay.
and the bargaining unit that the lead is in.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, Director Pugliese is bringing 2 originals forward for signature. Madam Auditor, I will get a fully executed copy to you for your records. Public Health, Director Marshall is not here this evening and has asked me to bring this forward. And that is we have 2 bulleted items. This comes on the tail, if you will, of closing the home health aid. Thank you. I'll get a copy to you as well. The home health aid program, home health care program, excuse me. Currently, in the home health care program, we had home health aides that were supervised by a person in a supervisory role, in a supervisory range. They were also lead supervised the public health nurses that were involved in that program as well. This new position we're talking about, which you have a copy that was forwarded to you, the long-term care lead nurse, was formed in response to that reorganization within the department and dropping that particular program. This position has come back to the county as a long-term care lead nurse banded at C43. Our public health nurses are banded at C42, if that gives you any perspective.
So it's a boost.
The supervisor was a C51, but this is not a supervisory role. This is just a lead for the public health nurses. We are looking at conducting an internal search to fill that. That would be, and we will be coming back to the board next week with I would like to have Director Marshall here because the current position, that banding is going away. So we're not certain if the person that's in that position is going to apply for this this job, or if they're going to come back in as a public health nurse. And so we need a few days to sort that out. And that, I would like the director here for that. But at this time, this is one part of that puzzle, and we would like to go forward to get this started. Certainly, you are not going to making any decisions on who's in there yet, and so we'll try to bring it all back as one package. But in order to post this and go forward, we need your consent to move forward.
Okay.
And
So-
again, this is a, no increase in levy.
Right, this was taken into account, the change in the position when the budgets were
Right.
submitted.
Great, thank you, Carol.
And the motion you need is,
To approve the position and banding determination for the long-term care lead nurse C43, and to approve conducting an internal search in the Public Health Department to fill the position of a long-term care lead nurse.
yeah, so moved.
I'll second it.
Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Almost through staffing, we have Sheriff's Department requesting to change the employment status of Lynn Bauer from probationary jailer dispatcher to regular status effective October 19th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. I have one other item, and that is labor negotiations, closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D 03 on the agenda here, to discuss strategy for labor negotiations, including negotiation strategies or developments or discussion and
Ooh,
Oh,
that's-
gosh.
I wondered when he'd finally drop on somebody, floating all around.
Well, I have a little,
There he goes.
I have an extreme allergy to them. They make me
Ooh.
stop breathing. So it just scared me for a second. Didn't know what it was. Anyway, I'd like to go into closed session pursuant to 179A.01.
I'll move to go into closed session.
Okay.
Second.
All in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to open meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. The board met in
Well,
clo-
just a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Craig's not.
Oh, I thought he put it on. Ready for me, Craig? The board met in closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D03 Subdivision 1B to discuss strategy for labor negotiations, including developments and the units we've currently met with. And no action is being proposed at this time.
Okay, thanks, Tess. Action items. Approve claims, human service, and license center disbursements.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approve abatement for Crystal Bechtel, parcel 22.0031.003, as property should have been classified as homestead.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Appoint voting delegate and alternate for MCIT. Note MCIT's annual meeting is scheduled for 4 p.m. on 12/4 during the AMC annual conference.
Yeah.
Is everybody going to the annual conference, or how is that?
I am,
I'm
but-
planning to.
I'm planning to, but I am also on the extension meeting, which is the same time.
Okay, I'll go there and vote if,
Okay.
is there, are you planning on going, Fred?
I
Or
think
Scott?
so.
I don't know, I haven't checked yet.
Okay, you want to be an alternate? Fred, or you want to be the main man?
I don't,
Put me down as a,
be my guest.
okay, you're alternate.
Okay, so Fred's gonna be alternate, and Jack's gonna be the voting delegate.
Okay. Consent agenda. Correspondence regarding tons delivered to Excel during September. Correspondence from MnDOT responding to commissioner concerns raised at June 27th. Did everyone read those?
Yes, I did, and I was rather upset that they didn't bring up that, where that Brownsville, where
Yeah.
26, and, because that was a real concern of mine.
Yeah, and
That's a
I
good
think
job
it should be.
putting that back in there because it's,
Yeah. I just craned my neck there last week again, because
Yeah.
it's not a good intersection.
Mm-mm.
Correspondence from MCIT announcing annual meeting and notice of election. We just
Mhm.
correspondence from MCIT notifying a vote to amend the MCIT Joint Powers Agreement.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do we have to get back to them about that concern about Highway 26 and
I
to
think-
MnDOT, or?
I think we should.
probably should. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, you know, they should know it's a concern of ours.
It is
Yeah.
a concern. Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, commissioners' reports. Fred?
Well, I've been to an extension meeting and I've been to a water meeting, and both of them are, things are going as normal. There's no specific reports to make on them.
Major problems or anything?
No. No, I don't think so. At this time of the day, I'm not, I was gonna bring that other thing we talked about before, the emergency management thing, is that's gonna happen next week anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm done.
Teresa?
I had extension meeting, which Fred was at also, and it was good. We still don't have a new district regional director yet, but we're in the process.
You have more work to do.
I have more work to do. I did meet with Scott and our appraisers just to get a overview of the project. No news on that at this point. I went to the Houston County Historical Society elevator dedication, representing the county. I'm just glad I did go to that. It was very well done. The person who donated all the money to put in the elevator for our new historical building. And I don't know if did anybody go to that funeral for Harry Root, our Fillmore County commissioner that passed away last week? He's with our joint board of health, He was only 57, and the funeral was Friday.
I don't know if I even was aware of it.
Yeah, we got a notice from AMC,
Okay.
and he's from Fillmore County, and I talked to Dwayne, and
I gotta be honest, I saw that and Fillmore didn't register with me. I thought it was in a more obscure county that.
no, Fillmore right next door, and he's
I
on
know
our
where it
joint
is.
power
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
you know, we're
That's-
here.
But
Harry
was he
Root.
at our last meeting?
Yes.
I'm
He
trying to
took-
picture which one.
He's kind of balding, glasses, he usually talks a lot.
Okay, yeah, wow.
Yeah, I
So-
know, 57, I thought that was kind of,
Yeah,
I did think we should probably send a sympathy card or a note, but I did email Dwayne Bakken about it,
Yeah.
that we were sad to hear that, but
does the county have any kind of a sunshine club or anything?
I don't think we give anything, but I think we should at least send our sympathy.
They do something with the end, we don't send to other places.
No.
Okay.
Anyway, I did want to bring that out because I was kind of shocked too. He's kind of
Yeah.
young.
I guess. Sounds
And-
real young.
Yeah, 57, that's pretty young to. In our district meeting, you saw is October 30th. It's a Monday, but it's in Faribault, which is about a 2-hour drive. I didn't print off the map and directions. I do plan on going to it, and I'll bring it up again next week. But We'll have to leave very early.
What time of day is that?
It's 8 o'clock meeting,
Morning.
morning, 8 to noon on the 30th. Okay.
Could make both things.
And Scott and I, as of this evening, are meeting with the library people and a couple people from the cities concerning negotiations on our contract, 3-year contract, on October 23rd at 9. Did you see that, Scott?
yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know if it was set for 8 or 9, that was.
It's now at 9.
Okay.
It was all talked about on and on, so finally I just said, how about this date?
9.
We'll come, you know. So we're on for the 23rd. And the thank you to Shar for giving us some clarifications
Yes,
on the
thanks,
library.
Shar.
I really appreciated that a lot.
We still need to look into what we've done in the past with them.
Exactly, and I got that
Oh,
too.
you do,
I
great.
got all the information on that, so. And that's the main things
Teresa,
ahead.
I've done a little bit of questioning about Selco's financial statement, and I really don't have anything nailed down there yet.
Okay, I have.
The only thing I can find on the website is a pie chart, and that
Oh.
didn't tell me what I needed to know.
Yeah, no, ours is basically what we give per capita for the rural people versus what the cities are already levying. And we're quite a bit below. They're at $35 a person, we're at $18 a person. So the libraries are trying to equalize that out a little bit. I did make it very plain that we are not increasing it this year, but we'll talk about the next 2 years.
It's
So-
kind of an ongoing battle.
Yeah,
Well, Fred expressed some, I mind if I,
Go ahead.
well, how much is spent administratively versus services?
mhm.
And it looked a little administratively heavy, but again, we can look at that
We've-
more closely.
We've got to evaluate that a little bit more than I was able to do off the pie chart, because the only thing I could get off the pie chart was and Tess has done some work on it.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
Ann pulled this off their website for the commission. I'm going to deliver that to you tonight. She did that this afternoon.
Okay.
I can make copies for everybody if you.
Well, at least for Scott and I, because
Yeah,
we
'cause
need
we're
it.
gonna meet with
Yeah.
them Monday.
The two of us are on.
That
Well,
before
Yeah,
we leave
okay.
out.
I did contact Fillmore County, and they are, the library, we're paying $150,000, and they're paying $250,000 appropriation. I did get what their budget, what their appropriation was, because
All
we're
right.
closing.
Well,
But anyway,
My concern was that their budget for the year's a bit over 3 mil, and slightly over half of that goes to, quote, administrative expenses, whatever that includes, and it wasn't real clear about what that included. I'm looking for an itemized thing, and I haven't found it yet.
Okay.
Tess is looking
Sounds
for the
good.
same thing. It might be here, but I'm not going to dig through this tonight.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Teresa?
Nope, that's it.
Scott?
But that begs the question, I was talking to Teresa about, is this common practice then, that we negotiate with them for 3 years? It
Yes.
sounds like, and that we will meet with them as 2 delegates,
And then bring back what,
bring back their offer, or not their offer, I mean, they've already, and then we talk to it as a board?
yes.
Yep.
Is that how we'd like to continue this? I mean, this is how we'll do it this year. Just wondering if that's the right way to go about it, or if they should be coming in like the other department heads do and talking to the whole board, or are we wasting time with how many different meetings with them to bring stuff back to the board? You know,
Well,
is
as
it,
long as it's set up at this point, I'd proceed. as-
yeah, this year.
It's
I
good
just
for
thought
3
it's-
years, so.
Oh, that's true, we're doing it 3
Yeah.
year, and that's been the practice, it sounds like.
It has.
Carol, would you get a copy of that thing that you
Oh,
just gave me
we'll
for
continue
Scott?
as is,
Okay.
me and Jack met with Brian Pogodinsky about bike trails in La Crescent. The city of La Crescent is pursuing re-evaluating all their bike trails within the city of La Crescent and have different things they would like the county to look at on our county roads. And so we went through the bike trails with Brian, and nothing so far is that Brian is going to write our responses back to the city, going to send
Yeah,
Jack.
and I saw Bill Waller, the city administrator, after our little tour, and I said, interesting, he said, it's a start.
Yeah.
So,
So
some of it, I
We need to
mean,
levy for that kind of thing, I
well,
suppose?
nothing at this
not at
point
this
at all.
point.
It's
I mean,
just,
we're
they got a
talking,
wish list.
yeah, we're talking into the 2020s for
Yeah.
some of
Oh.
this, so, but it's.
There's
it's a-
some things as far as striping, some things that are way higher.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of being just batted around as
Yeah.
possibilities.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a start, yeah.
And that's what all I got.
Okay, I had EDA meeting, which I arrived at late, but got good information, and our young EDA lady, as you saw, is off to be married. But,
Oh, no, I didn't see
yeah,
that.
and then honeymooning in Ireland.
Oh, good for
So,
her.
good for her, but she really does
Good.
have enthusiasm for this, and she's making inroads, and
Yeah.
it's good to see. Union negotiations, we've already mentioned, we met with both units, law enforcement units, and today with AFSCME. So that obviously will be ongoing. I went to the ECB meeting, the radio, right, and last on the agenda was new chairman for 2018, and they said, oh, looks like it's Houston's turn. Oh, good. So, I was the only
The
dissent.
only one there.
I was the only dissenting vote, but I talked to the lady, Judy Inderly, who was very helpful, and she said, well, Travis can help you out too, and so I talked to Travis, and he said, well, actually, Brian Swetberg's been more involved than I have, so I talked to Brian, and he said, would you like a book of 100 acronyms? But I'll get up to speed. It doesn't meet that often, but
Jack, you misunderstood. It's not 100 acronyms. It's 100 pages of acronyms.
you're probably right, Fred. And then we had a Wildcat meeting, and we, as you may remember, we have the Corps of Engineers coming to our November 7th meeting. We just talked generally about the expenditures we've had, the how we keep track of things and how we might keep track of them better, and just a lot of things that we'll be following up on. So,
Do we have kind of an agenda, or should we be trying to come up with some kind of an agenda for what we want to ask or get from the Corps?
I think if each of you just
Have something in mind, that if you
something
got
in
something you
mind,
want
I
to
know I
ask.
do, and so I did get another. Unfortunately, using the cell phone so much, I don't check my phone as
Email.
frequently as I could. So then my wife said, "Did you call so and so back about Wildcat?" And so I did, and he had seen, that the petitions that were closing, and he happens to have a permanent site and so forth, but eased his fears and would just move forward, though, with, I think there's a lot we can do in terms of tightening up
Yeah.
what we do, and no, I think we've been, I guess you could say, maybe lucky to have Jake down there, and it's not, it's just, again, that this is county money, and.
Needs to be managed better.
Exactly, so,
I have had calls too on that, and basically I've been trying to reassure them that we're not closing it, we're just
Right.
trying to revamp the
Yeah.
structure.
We're just looking at the system.
yeah.
Right.
Anything else from anyone?
Yeah, one thing that I forgot. The Fair Board has passed the lease agreement
Oh, okay.
that their attorney, that we did, and their attorney looked at it, and they passed it. And I don't know what happened. I was supposed to get a copy of it give to people here, and I didn't get it. I tried to get it today
Okay,
again.
well, I think I mentioned to you, Fred, or when I
Yeah.
said that they've been approved as a 501c3.
Yes,
Oh, good.
yes, they did get that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, good. Okay, anything else? Yvonne, do you have a comment, or you're the only audience?
Just that I heard Camp Winnebago was sold, so we
Yes.
can get some money.
That was a note we got from, Courtney, thank you, that we expect to get what's owed to us, and so, but that was a quick sale. So, okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Carol.